Joker man in the sky.
The great Joker man.
What's Michelle's middle name?
Michelle?
Obama.
Oh.
Hussein.
Ayatollah.
I'm gonna just start telling people that.
Fucking up our dancing to the theme, Angela.
Sorry.
But here, save the political hot takes for a little later. You need your red cap.
Already canceled. I haven't even made it through the theme song.
Exactly. We're turning this into a preppers show. We'll all just become preppers.
Hey.
Hey.
What's up?
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man.
Play a song for me.
My harp's in the shop. Whoa, out the gate. Out the gate. I mean, this is the content people love.
It really is. Yeah, that's what people are here to see. Half-baked Bob Dylan lyrics.
Yes.
And that's what they're going to see today.
Oh, definitely.
We're talking about 80s Bob Dylan.
Yes.
And that shit is half-baked.
Why are we doing this?
It was kind of torture.
Because I love it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, like this was kind of an intervention just of you, and as you mentioned, there's so many 80s Bob Dylan apologists that I gotta just take them to a deprogramming like cabin and just be like, this is a waste of everyone's time. And to help me with that argument is awesome person, amazing musician, amazing comedian, just general cool lady. Like every city should have like a weird cool lady. You know, every town just assign one, just does weird stuff. And it's like catch-up society.
I am the mom of this town. I don't know if you knew. Just making snacks for everybody.
So you've got to move to Brooklyn. You've already achieved
That's right.
top status.
That's right. Now I got to go be the mom there.
No,
it's true.
Oh.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you for tolerating listening to so much 80s Bob Dylan.
I did not get through a single song.
That's fair. I would expect no less. Yeah. Or no more.
I listened to the beginnings of all of the songs from like 85 to whenever, and then was grossed out every single time.
Just feels like that era is like a brown cloud. To
be fair, I'm the worst person you could have invited to this because I don't like any Bob Dylan.
That's why you're here. That's exactly why you were chosen.
I literally, like, everybody has their favorite conspiracy theory. Yeah. And sometimes on stage, I'll say that my favorite conspiracy theory is that men my age, I'm going to be 54 next month, that men my age, when they eat out ladies, they explain Frank Zappa to them. That's my... But in real life, the conspiracy theory that lives in a quiet place in my heart is that Hitler is from the future, and he was sent from the future back in time to kill Bobby Zimmerman. And he just got here early and couldn't figure it out.
He just fucked up. He failed.
And he was like, well, maybe if I just get everybody,
exactly,
it'll work.
Yeah, he's like,
and he didn't do it right.
Not the blooper.
Yeah. And he did a really, really bad job because he was the wrong guy to go.
It was like all the Terminator movies. It's
a very Philip K. Dick version of the world. I agree. But I like that world so much more than one where Bob Dylan is good.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of this world either. So
That's fair. I should say I'm very opinionated about Bob Dylan, but that does not mean that I do not adore and respect the gentlemen of this podcast.
Oh, shut up.
Who I think are lovely. And that I owned a record store and worked in record stores for a long time, so none of my opinions about music need be taken to heart because I've fucked them all up already. So.
Did you ever have any? I feel like you probably did not have Bob Dylan records at Weirdo.
No, I definitely did not.
Yeah.
You took a stand.
I also had no Beatles records and no Rolling Stones
that's
records
brave.
and no Led Zeppelin records, and I didn't stock classic rock basically.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't really come in because people knew that I was selling experimental records. But when somebody would just give me some, I would just take them. I would put them on a box on Mass Ave with a free sign and just let them go.
Good.
And they'd be gone in minutes, and that was fine.
Nice. Get them out there. What if there was like a really out there Eric Clapton album?
I mean, there's
Layla.
There's there's a George Harrison experimental music record.
Yeah.
Electronic music.
Oh no, definitely.
Which I would sell, so I guess I probably sold that at some point. So close, and like if, I'm not a crazy person. If somebody brought in some record that was worth a lot of money, I would take it and sell it to a store nearby. But mostly that didn't happen because people were like, oh, you're that lady who likes whale sounds. And I'd be like, yeah, that's me.
Guilty. But
only Dylan had made a whale sounds record.
He could have.
He kind of sounds like a goat, like sometimes. He has that bleat. I think he could make a goat sounds album.
There's a world in
absolutely could.
There's a world in which he hooked up with Brian Eno and did some weird shit.
Yeah, that could have happened.
Who is a distant relative of Daniel Lanois in the producer the producer family.
He's the reason that Brian Eno is somehow also produced U2. Like,
I don't want to talk about it. Let's focus on Bobby D and what a monster he is.
Yeah, let's do it.
For sure.
But before that,
someone who's not a monster.
Someone who's not a monster at all.
Well, actually,
there's a few moments.
If you ask her daughter, she is kind of a monster.
There's a few moments in that documentary that were not great. And we talked about Nina Simone for an hour, and we're like, oh yeah, man, here's the last 5 minutes. This wasn't great.
Oh yeah, she's abusive, and yeah, it's okay though.
And trauma is inherited from the generation to generation. But we focused on Nina Simone, incredible, legendary musician.
Yeah.
Like no one like her, and we were trying to figure out. We obviously couldn't sing like Nina Simone. That would not work. But we were talking about the movie The Blues Brothers in the show and what her scene would be like.
Yeah, like they've all lived, Cad Calloway has a scene, Aretha Franklin. Like, what would Nina Simone's scene be? Yeah. And this is what we came up with. Oh, there's a space.
The Brothers.
Dots. Oh, is it not saved for some reason? Technical difficulties. We're not live, but it's still.
Yeah, we'll be all right. We'll figure this out.
I'll stop. Oh, because I'm starting. So
just point at me.
Yeah. Jake and Elwood Blues arrive at St. Helen of the Blessed Shroud after leaving the prison where Jake had spent the last 3 years. Here we are. Time to see the penguin, said Elwood resignedly. I don't want to see fucking Sister Nina, man, said Jake. You promised you'd see her first thing out of the clink. Let's get going. And watch what you say about her. She'll hear you even out here. She's got supernatural hearing, Elwood scolded him. She's not a witch, she's just a nun, Jake said. She can't hurt me out here. Just then a voice came bellowing from inside the church. I don't believe in non-violence. The Blues Brothers sat in shock. Well, I guess she heard you, Elwood said to Jake, and she sounds pissed. The brothers walked across the street and entered the orphanage where they had grown up. Political slogans were drawn on the walls, and posters of black revolutionaries hung on every nail. Things really have changed at the orphanage since we left, huh? Said Jake. You're telling me. Just as he finished speaking, they heard a door slam loudly behind them in the distance. They both jumped 6 inches in the air, but as they landed, pretended to be calm and cool like nothing had happened. With each step up the creaky staircase leading to the recently slammed door, a note played, as if from a piano. As they reached the top, in the highest key, again, a voice rang out from behind the door, matching the key of the stair they had just stepped on. All right, how do we get in? Jake said. There's gotta be some sort of key or something, or maybe a code. I wish I had more light to see. Just then, the door swung open on its own, and the Blues Brothers entered the room behind it as if being sucked in by a force field. Before they knew it, they were in a large dining quarters. Sitting across from them, in a big ornate chair, sat the nun from their childhood, Nina Simone.
Have you been avoiding me, boys? She asked. No, ma'am. You see, we just, they spluttered. Save it. I know you don't have time for an old nun anymore. Even if she feels young, gifted and black. What brings you back here now? Well, you see, sister, Jake here just got out of the clink and You need someplace to stay, she asked. No, we just wanted to stop in since we were told you'd be the first person we visited when you got out of jail, Elwood explained. Very well then, said Sister Nina. But you couldn't have come at a worse time. The county is about to repossess the church and shut us down. What? Jake said. They can't do that. What about the church? Don't they pay for all these sorts of things? Yes, they do, Sister Nina said. For white people. Sadly, we will probably have to give up this old building and find a new home. Well, you've been here for decades, Elwood said back. There's gotta be something we can do. I wish there was, sugar, Sister Nina said. But we're not in the suburbs anymore. We're in Cook County, goddamn. Well, what do you have at your disposal to help fight this? Elwood asked. Well, I got my hair on my head, I got my brains, I got my ears, I got my nose, I got my tongue, I got my smile, I got my boobies, got my heart, got my soul, got my back, got my sex, got my arms, I got my hands, got my fingers, got my legs, I got my feet, I got my toes, I got my liver, got my blood, got life, I got my life. Okay, well, it sounds like you got it covered then, Elwood asked. Well, we still could use some money to keep paying the rent, Nina answered. Why don't you boys have your band play a benefit show for the church here? That's what you could really do to help. The band? Well, you see, Sister, Elwood started. Yeah, about the band, Jake continued. We lost touch. They fucking hate us, Elwood clarified. Well, that's just too bad, boys, Sister Nina said. I guess we'll just have to go do this the hard way. I'm afraid to ask what the hard way means here, sister, but we really gotta get going. Jake struggled to try to walk away, but he remained drawn to the room with the same force as before. You see, boys, Nina continued, I put a spell on you because you're mine. You will play a benefit show and the whole town will come see it, and then we will be able to pay off the county and get the orphanage back. So what you're saying is, Jake started quizzically, if you build it, they will come, Nina replied. Now you will go under my spell and recruit your band members, and you will have fun dance numbers as you recruit each of them. I'm having visions. Aretha Franklin is there. Cab Calloway is there. Ray Charles is there. Now go, find your band in your fascist pig vehicle and fuck up some Nazis for me. Whatever you say, miss, said Elwood. He then felt a sharp slap on his hand as Sister Nina came down on him with a ruler. That's sister to you, Mr. Blues. It's beautiful.
Yeah, a scene from the novelization of the Blues Brothers.
Yes. I love that. I used to read a lot of, the novel version of Men in Black 2. That was a personal favorite of mine.
I never read the second Jurassic Park actual book, but I did read the novelization of the second Jurassic Park movie.
Just as good. Just as good.
Yeah.
That was a hoot.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
I mean, they can't prove it. Things they also can't prove is that Bob Dylan sucked in the 80s.
I don't know. I think that's, you don't get to have Kevin Lemanowitz from Fox 25 News to tell which way the wind blows.
You know, you don't need... You know what? When you're right, you're right. And when you're quoting Bob Dylan, you're right.
Exactly. Probably his most quoted era, the 80s.
Definitely.
Neighborhood Bully.
Yes.
A lot of marches lately, Neighborhood Bully. But we'll get to that. Let's just start off this stinker. This stinker of a decade.
I mean, the 80s in general, kind of a stinker of a decade.
Oh, for so many artists. I think it's not just him, you know.
Oh, yeah. A lot.
And when we get to Dylan and the Dead, that's just two groups just in the abyss of the 80s.
Yeah.
Just like, where am I? Like, I'm in a hole. Like, get me out of here.
And the Dead also just happen to have like their biggest commercial success at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
How did that happen? But yeah. So, I mean, he kind of, how would you say his decade starts?
His decade starts deep in Jesus.
Definitely.
You know, it's like, I almost like didn't want to include the first two records because it's almost like a continuation of the late 70s where he becomes the Jesus guy for no reason.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't even know. There's some story I feel like where somebody threw a rosary on stage and he was feeling lost. I like everything with him. It's 90% bullshit. I mean, I love Bob Dylan, and even his best songs are 55% bullshit.
How does he get away with
That's
that?
very fair. Very fair.
I like that you're starting out. This is what he does in an argument. He gooses you up a little bit, greases the wheels, and then he comes in with infidels.
So
You gotta not be distracted by him.
I'll say this. My understanding of Dylan is not based at all in sound because I hate the sound. So, so my theory on how Dylan works is mostly based on what it's like to watch Don't Look Back at different ages. Because Don't Look Back is three characters. It's Bob Dylan, Donovan, and a guy who works for a Life magazine. And this is a movie many people have seen. It's worth seeing, and it's worth seeing multiple times, even though I hate everyone in it. Because because when you're like 19 and you first hear about this movie and you watch it, you see the guy from Life magazine and you're like, oh my god, that guy's so out of touch. What the fuck? This sucks. And Dylan seems super cool. And Donovan, you're like, you're a little bit like, okay, whatever. He seems a little shallow, but fine. And basically, the Life magazine guy is very goofy, very sincere, 100% sincere. He's trying to do his job. He's a traditional person. Dylan is an absolute ironic dick to the gills.
Oh, yeah.
And Donovan is trying to figure out how to be alive and really likes Dylan and is kind of halfway between.
Yeah.
So,
and the Dylan Donovan thing is great. It's like,
yes.
I really admire you. He's like, yeah, go chew some bubblegum, man.
Yeah. It's very, he's a piece of shit. He's an absolute piece of
Donovan
shit.
comes in and plays the song. He's like, oh yeah, well, here's one of my songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's cool guitar guy stuff.
You're like, when you read about music history from a long time ago, you forget that it's just like people in their 20s being absolute dickwads to one another.
Yes.
And then nobody knows what they're doing. And so that's why, all these things happen. You read about like Brian Wilson, people behind the scenes and like saying some insult to him. And then he's like, oh my God, I have to change my whole life. Why would that happen? Except that that's just what it's like. So you see that movie again when you're like in your 20s, your late 20s. And at that point, you're like, oh, Donovan is the cool one. And Bob Dylan is kind of a douchebag, and the Life magazine guy is still, what the fuck. But then you see that movie when you're like any time between like 37 and 48, and you're like, oh, the Life magazine guy rules. And fuck Bob Dylan. And like, who cares about Donovan, he's a lost cause. So... And it just kind of goes around and around like that. Like I'm going to be 54, so I have almost gotten back around to the thinking that Dylan is cool because now I just think it's fun to be a dick to people.
He is kind of like, ain't I a stinker?
Yeah.
Like he honestly in that movie he should have a slingshot in his back pocket like a Dennis the Menace.
Yeah. So. I think Bob Dylan is famous because he invents the idea that self-awareness is something that you need to be a musician, to be a good musician. And that's why people like him. It's definitely not because of any sonic thing he ever did. and I don't, you know, like, whatever. I can understand why people get into it. I think the Basement Tapes are better than other things he did. And there are cool things to find out. It's not my thing, but I get it. But, like, personally, I think Bob Dylan is the reason Western civilization went bad. Like, if you could just take him out of the world, it's so much nicer. And like, what, you know, like, what do I mean? Well, like, if there's no Bob Dylan, there's no Jefferson Starship. If there's no Bob Dylan, there's no Ronald Reagan. If there's no Bob Dylan, and if there's no Ronald Reagan, there's no Donald Trump, there's no Jeff Bezos. There's like so many things that are wrong with our world just didn't have to be there, and they could all go away. And, like, sure, you could argue very easily that things that are just as bad might be in their place. And I don't know if that's true or not. I would love to find out.
What do you think is it that he broke that created that?
I think it's the self-awareness thing. I think he invented hipsterism, basically.
Okay.
And, you know, I say that as someone who made a living off of people buying weird records and, you know, dedicated my life to it for a good amount of time. So I'm also fucked up. But, you know, I think the tipping of priorities before him, even if you're talking the Beatles, like the humorous Beatles or whatever, it's cheekiness. It's never like... it's never like Andy Kaufman level, let's fuck things up at the expense of everything else, you know? And I think that attitude, that way of looking at the world, nothing means anything, let's just be fucked up, you know, is what gets invented there.
That is true. I feel like some combination of him and Andy Warhol stuff.
Yes.
That the modern conception of the hipster, which is the standoffish, I don't care about anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because before that there was hipsters, but it was the Beats who were I care about everything.
Yeah. Very different. Very different thing. And that whole thing, you know, there's an article that came out, I don't know when, about the invention of the teenager. It's a documentary you can watch. You know, teenagers weren't an identity until probably the 50s, begins then. And it doesn't solidify until the mid-60s. And then it becomes this thing that has been there ever since. And it's, you know, and it's still part of what we do as a culture. It's why, you have to say skibbity now, and you have to, you know, rizzle me this bullshit, because whatever 12-year-olds are up to, whatever jaded 12-year-olds is what everyone needs to pay attention to now.
Well, think about this, all right? Your Bob Dylan theory of how just decline of Western civilization. You know what happened before that?
What?
What started the thing you're just talking about? Giving kids allowances. So if we cut that off at the hedge...
Sure,
you know,
I'm fine with that.
All right, good.
Yeah.
A lot of kids are getting disappointed this week if the... Wash Dad's car, wash his Camaro. It's you get an extra hour of TV. It's come on.
You know, if Bob Dylan had been TV famous, if that's what he had tried to do, it would be a very different world.
Oh, if he was in the Monkees?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That'd be so fire.
Imagine a world where there's no Bob Dylan and it collapses and the whiteout fortune is that.
Yeah.
You know, that's an amazing world. That's a really, really interesting, weird world. And, you know, I don't know. I guess the contemporary way to put that is we all understand that we're not living in the best timeline.
What are you talking about? Everything's been chill for me.
2020 was great.
Yeah.
It's could things be more of a walk in the park? How many daisies do I have to sniff?
Here's my question. Here's my best argument to you. I think Palestine would be freer.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
You know, Israel existed, but did they really exist until Bob Dylan wrote Neighborhood Bully?
There you go.
You know
There you
that
go.
song?
I listened to
We're
it
gonna-
for
yeah,
the
we're gonna
purpose
get
of
through
this
that.
podcast. It's
All right,
a really
let's go
awful
through some
song.
years. Yeah, it's really bad, but there's so much awful crap before
Oh, yeah,
that.
there's
Imagine
plenty.
like the gospel
Let's
thing.
start.
All
All
right.
right.
That's even talking about 60s and we're just like by cultural force he was like socially relevant. By the 80s it's just
He's not relevant.
I think
Yeah.
it's even
Tom
more.
Petty
yeah.
has superseded him.
I think it's even more cynical because it feels like the 80s Dylan political songs. Like, all right, got to do a political one. You know,
Yeah.
like, all right, this one.
He means
Yeah.
nothing by
Yeah,
this
yeah.
point. It's really weird. And I think the weirdest thing to me is hearing those records now, you can really date them. He's invented a sound with the band and then he's just applying it to like whatever is trendy. So
You identify the
once
year
he gets
of
out of
the-
the
yeah.
Christian thing, you can hear like from the production sound what they're applying it to.
Like what year the drum machine was released.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
You can hear that.
You can totally
on
hear it.
Oh, yeah.
The
So
fucking
painful.
drums on whatever that horrible
Empire
box set
Burlesque.
one. That's the one.
That's really rough. That's
They're
rough.
really rough.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's like, yeah, it's We Guilt This City all the way.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
bad.
Absolutely. No, did Mutt Lange do We Built the City? It wouldn't surprise me.
I don't know if he did, but I do think he's the inventor of that style of drums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's the guy who was like compression on everything. Let's make it sound like claps.
Yeah.
We'll make the drums so tiny they'll be huge. Makes no
Brilliant.
sense. And
That's what I tell the girlfriend.
you know,
It's so tiny, it's huge, dear.
right. It's like the musical version of a giant pickup truck where one is not needed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I feel like he's never really had an idea of what sound he's going. Like, even
No,
in the
he's not a
60s.
sound person.
Yeah,
He's a troubadour, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
He's interested in, like, he's a folk musician, even if he's not playing acoustic instruments.
Yeah.
His hero is Woody Guthrie. And so he's trying to communicate to the people. And in the 80s, that is problematic as fuck.
I don't even think by the 80s, I don't even think he's trying to. In the 80s, he's just
Yeah.
trying to be like, I don't know, people pay me to do this.
Yeah, at that point, it doesn't even matter
I know.
anymore.
I think
He's like,
in
you
the-
want me to
yeah.
wear a shirt with funny colors on it? Yeah, go ahead, you know.
I think in the first part of the 80s, he's trying to save people.
Well, yeah.
With such great albums as Save, The Big Hand Coming Down. You remember this?
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh, yeah.
one of the funniest.
I think the
records.
Defend this awful album.
Oh, that's one of the ones I can't. I will say, will defend the first and the third Jesus albums. I think Slow Train Coming is actually a good album. And Shot of Love doesn't suck. It's not great, but it has a couple of good songs. Save sucks. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of like reminds me of it, like because it's the blend of gospel and rock, so it is like a really bad '90s church band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That sound is like '90s church band. Like the minister said we could do a blues shuffle. You know, like
Yeah.
he had to like go and do penance. He had to like get like where they whip him.
Yeah.
You know, and then he's like, all right, you can use the pentatonic scale on this. You know,
Yeah.
it has that vibe, especially.
It's also, I don't know if it's because of him, but through this, like, the influence of non-funk black music through the late 70s into the 80s is basically like get a bunch of ladies, put them in white robes, get a lot of them on the stage, and make it loud. And like,
he married one of those ladies.
yeah. And that's just like what people did.
Smart.
And you see it all over the place. It's why, like, maybe that's can't always get what you want is the influence that makes that happen. I don't
maybe.
know.
Oh, I think that brought it like, we have to get like a big ass choir.
Yeah,
I think that
That's
was
a
like,
very big
I
thing
think that
to do at
started
that
the
point.
trend.
And so this is definitely like a stop on the road along the way to that.
Definitely.
But at least it doesn't go like full Elton John level or whatever.
No.
You know, it's
Yeah.
still. It's an attempt to have a back to basics sound. I think like Slow Train is way more back to basics than Empire Burlesque, and that's what people were thinking about then. You know, like people were like, "Oh, the '70s were wild. Let's get Huey Lewis." You know.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get it back to sports.
Yeah,
You know, the vibe.
that's what people wanted.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like I feel like he, like never really. That's the thing with that record. It's like kind of lost. Like, I feel like he never quite figured out what about Jesus he liked. He just, like, you know, how some people kind of are like, I don't have any purpose anymore. I guess I'm into Jesus now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
like,
weird. It's weird. There's that. The weirdest part is that Animals song.
God gave it.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
that's so bad.
That's like on the way to children's music.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
really
exactly.
It's a
Dude.
strange song.
Imagine if Dylan and Raffi banged.
Yeah,
They should work together. I mean, he has songs in like the early '90s, like "Wiggle Wiggle" and stuff.
That was the thing. I was so angry. I was like, because that Under the Red Moon.
That's worse
that's
than any of
that
worse than
stinks so
anything. I will agree.
bad. I was like, can we pop that on? Oh yeah, in "Shot of Love," he wrote a song about a legendary Christian, Lenny Bruce.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, used his Christian album to talk about how Lenny Bruce should have gotten an Oscar.
Exactly. It's kind of vague. It's kind of like, I think he's kind of cool, but I'm Christian.
you can just
so
see
I don't
the
know.
wheels turning.
That's
it's
adorable.
not the
Imagine
only
him in his
person-
room, like, yeah,
Yeah,
Lenny,
like that's the
Lenny,
thing.
my man.
He's not the only '60s rocker to make this mistake. I'm a huge fan of '70s Beach Boys, and they also fucked this up. But like, people were like, "Oh yeah, how'd they write songs in the '20s and '30s? Oh, they just wrote about what was around them. What's around us?" And then they're just like, "Ba ba ba. Here's a song about Johnny Carson. Ba ba ba. Here's a song about Lenny Bruce." And it does not work. It does not work. Once the cat, like, that's the thing that makes me mad about Bob Dylan, is like, once the cat's out of the bag, once we're all self-aware, once fucking Saint Augustine has like let loose the church ceiling, we're fucked. You don't get to do that anymore. It doesn't work. It's not the same thing. You can't just be like, I'm telling the truth. No, you're not. You're talking about fucking TV.
Yeah.
But his whole thing has always just been using like interesting enough imagery that it covered that up.
Yes.
And then by this point, he's just not.
It's not there. Yeah.
And it's kind of like culturally, like he'll always do like, oh, this is I'm talking about something. You know what I mean? Where he'll pick like at what like a focus or like a person or like a, you know, and it's like, at what point like do all these tributes just, when you get to like, the Titanic was weird, man.
Yeah.
Or like, I got some questions about JFK, bro.
Yeah.
He should have written a song about the movie Titanic.
He references it in it. He references it right at the end.
Does he?
He's like, oh, my
Nice.
sweet Leo. He's like,
Gross.
Anytime he references movies, it's funny. That's when we'll get into Brownsville Girl later. He keeps going back to some movie about Gregory Peck.
Yeah, that I heard that today, and I had to stand up and go in the other room.
more like brown eye girl. You know what I mean? You're
so
brown.
brutal.
You're brown eye.
girl.
So
Yeah.
brutal. Very difficult to listen.
Oh yeah, and then the one after is Christian Era is the one you stick up for so
I
much.
think Infidels is really Joker Man.
It's
is
not
like,
that bad.
Joker Man has that like classic '60s like surrealist imagery, vaguely socially relevant kind of, but you know, it's more obviously bullshit than the '60s ones are. You know,
It has like a better sound to it, you know, where it feels kind of like an album. You're like, all right, has some fun stuff on, and it also has a very surface level man. I think it's the best album cover because he just looks so scuzzy, like he just like rolled out of bed and is like spit up a cigarette, like Waylon Smithers style, and just walked out and someone was like, "Hey, you taking a photo of me?" And it's hard to get that vibe. Like, "Hey, you taking a photo of me?"
he masters that. I feel like he has a few albums that are like that. Like Blonde on Blonde is almost like that. It's just like,
Yeah, but he's like, I'm contemplating, like I'm thinking about stuff. This is just like, you know where I could get some eggs?
It's good. That's
Yeah.
very funny. Have you guys seen? It just came up recently because so I'm a hater. I'm a real big hater. You're never gonna beat me at hating. I hate a lot. I know it's very unlikable, but I'm just gonna tell you a thing that I really hate. I also hate fucking Tom Waits. So
I'm getting off
Tom
this
Waits,
shit.
I know.
I'm
You
getting
don't
off
have to
this
agree
shit.
with me. I still think you're a good person if you disagree with me. So what I am reminded of is that there's a movie that just came out last night with the devil.
Oh, yeah.
Late night with the devil.
Yep.
Excuse me. And the movie is partly inspired by this interview on Australian TV with Tom Waits, where Tom Waits is either drunk or pretending to be drunk. No one knows
the
which.
Dean Martin pretending to be drunk.
Yeah,
He
seems like he's pretending to be drunk, but the audience thinks he's really drunk. The audience is, it's a talk show audience, like a daytime talk show audience, and the host is he's 3 steps to the left of the 80s talk show hosts here, 70s talk show hosts here, but he's like somebody, his hair's down over his ears, basically, but he's still wearing a suit with a wide tie. And so Tom Waits shows up, mumbles into his own belly button, and this guy, instead of yelling at him, which everyone wants to, sits down next to him and starts smoking cigarettes with him and just being like, so how's it going, man? And everyone's like, oh my God, this host is so charming. And it made the guy's career.
Oh, yeah.
So when they were making the movie, they, redid this. But what I'm trying to say is careers are to be had in your ability to pretend, to cosplay the homeless. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
And I think Dylan's still photo version of that has an analog in Tom Waits's live action version for sure.
No, I feel that in a lot of ways. I'm like, he's a gross guy like me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So Tom Waits, I feel like there was a certain point at which he became genuinely weird, or at least was able to
if
put
you
on.
cosplay the homeless long enough, you might end up fucked up.
No, you're doing your Harry Parch. You're in the fucking railroad yard, just banging pipes and shit.
There's plenty of people who don't get famous doing it, and I don't know which is worse. They're both bad. And Harry Parch is a great example of that guy did the same thing. He just didn't make any money.
Exactly. He wasn't going to the right hardware stores.
Stupid,
Yeah. But early Tom Waits, 70s Tom Waits is it's like a parody of
I heard Louis Armstrong last week, and I also have shoes with holes in them.
Yeah.
So great. And I get why people like it. I get why people are like, oh, cool. And, Tom Waits has songs that are interesting and occasionally or whatever. But, if you make enough music, something will click.
Yeah.
But yeah, that persona thing, I think, is, that's part of the self-aware thing that Dylan is into.
Is
very good
much
at.
so.
And, the reason he's famous is for the ability to just be like, yeah, I'm cooler than everyone. Fuck you. That attitude, whatever that is, that incredible unearned confidence is.
But don't you just need that just to get out of bed?
You probably
or is that
do.
Just me?
You probably do. Yeah, you probably do.
I mean,
I don't know why I get out of bed, but that's not why.
Or some days it's I was born to suffer.
Yeah, that's more my vibe.
I am the eye of the angel of death.
Yeah, definitely.
No. I'm
Definitely.
having a great time.
No.
And with Dylan, there's so much to cover up, too, because it's just any impression you ever get from anybody who, knew him, it's just there's not really any there.
No.
You know what I mean? He's just sort of a guy who, when he was 20, people were like, you're a prophet, and then he just had to kind of deal with that the rest of his life.
And he's still dealing with it. He won a prize, you know? So fucked up.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm trying to get through these albums. You're talking infidels. You can't talk about it without Neighborhood Bully. One of the most relevant songs right now.
Yeah.
A guy that's picking some good... it's amazing how quickly he was...
Read those lyrics.
It was... we gotta pull... It's it's pretty... It's crazy, this shift from born again Christian to this one's from a boys. This one's
doesn't it suck? Everybody's always kicking Israel around.
This is what I'm talking about. The political songs that just mean you just I gotta crank one out for the boys.
I love that he is, and a lot of people do this, but we've all read about a rap song that people are like, hey, I shot 37 people. And then they're like, did you? And they're like, no, I'm an artist. But this whole thing where he's like, he's famous because he's political.
Yeah,
like
sure.
he's the reason we all know his name is because he's political. And there's no other fucking reason.
Yeah.
And for him to put this out and then be like, I'm just fucking around. Like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah. Oh, it's it's become like an anthem. You know what I mean? For some folks.
I'm sure it's written on some IDF trucks, you know.
That's true. He does kind of have his cake and eat it too, being like, I hate that people like think I'm a prophet, but also like, you should be into Jesus, or like, listen to what I say about Israel.
If he was on the apps, he'd be like, I'm a centrist. I'm not that political.
Yeah.
You know, I see both sides.
I'm a centrist.
But like, it's funny because my dad doesn't like anything after the political shit, after you know, Blonde on Blonde, bringing it all back home, the band stuff. Anything in the 70s, it's just, my dad's like, you know, kind of like, this is just a depressed divorce guy.
Yes.
All the songs. He's like, I gotta
so
write.
divorced.
I know.
Oh
He's like,
my
I
God,
gotta
you
write
nailed
songs
it.
about. I gotta write songs about the people, man. Relationships.
He seems like he just moved into the worst fucking apartment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's the thing,
you
is
nailed
the
it.
80s is when he seems the most divorced.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
And people thought he was, like, it turns out he was secretly married for most of that
Yeah.
time, but, like, he seems more divorced than anyone's ever been.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of
big
what I was
time.
telling you. Is like the Blood on the Tracks era divorced. He's like the cool divorce guy. Like, I'm a lone wolf and I'm a desperado and I'm riding
After
a
he bought a
stallion.
motorcycle,
And then in the
yeah.
80s, he's like maybe divorced or maybe like twice divorced, and he's hanging out with the stepkids. Like, that guy's got powdered wig, and you know, he's like. Those songs in the 80s where he's just commenting on stuff and like, isn't this a crazy thing? This lady loves me and I think she's ugly.
Yeah.
And like, it's just like his stepkids are just like, oh, fucking, can he just shut up? Like, just he in the 80s he's like the divorced dad's like embarrassing his kids at like in a public place.
Well, that's that big production stuff on like the next record, Empire Burlesque.
Oh,
is like, it's
we're
all
in the
that
shit
like,
area.
That production is
Like, you
insane.
kids like Born to Run, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, isn't that cool?
Sure.
now?
It's
It would be,
so
like-
difficult.
I was trying to think of like what the equivalent would be of like who's somebody who was like very respected 20 years ago, and then like if they like put out a record with like Jack Antonoff or something. You know what I mean? The guy who does like this Taylor Swift records and stuff.
Like, this will save me.
You know, I'd rather, like I don't even know, but like
Yeah, it's.
Oh yeah, the first Tight Connection to My Heart, that was like the single, and it's like the worst just butt reggae. It's like reggae that's just mad butt, as we say in the community. Like, just like, it's just like what I'd be at if I was at Sandals. You know, if I was at Sandals, Jamaica, and I had like a nice hurricane drink or a pina colada.
Drum
clean
sound
drum.
on as Empire Burlesque is so offensive.
Which one? The drum set? Yeah.
yeah.
Drum sound
I will say-
alone. I put it on today. I was like, I need to figure out what we're listening to. I put that on today, and I flinched so hard I like threw my food.
Oh yeah.
I will say
feel
Dark
that.
Eyes though.
That's the
it also
only
doesn't
song
have
on
that production
because
it's
it's
like
only
acoustic.
him and a guitar.
Yeah, that helps.
It's only that's what I
helps.
put in my notes. It's the only good song on this. And this what reminds me of your thing is when the night comes falling from the sky. It literally is like fast paced, like drum machine and synthesizer, and it's almost like this is a Glenn Frey solo track that could be in Miami Vice.
Yeah.
Like this is the tension scene.
And I mean, I
or Amita
understand
Esperanza.
why they're like, you should make something that sounds contemporary. And, you know, if it, and this seems true, I would buy 100% that he's like, yeah, whatever, get some people you know. You want me to do this? Okay, get some people you know. And then whoever shows up and then he just doesn't tell them anything, does the thing, leaves. And they're like, what do we do? And they're going to be like, okay, let's make it sound like the radio. And that's what they did do that.
Absolutely.
They
'Cause it's
did
like-
their jobs.
'cause
They
this-
did exactly what the record label wanted them to do. They absolutely did their jobs. And we're all sorry. But, you know.
Yeah, because the songwriting isn't any different than it had ever been. It just like, happened to have a weird sound to it.
Oh, yeah, the sound is so bad.
Oh, and like
The next one kind of has that too, Knocked Out Loaded.
yeah, but I mean like
Knocked Out Loaded struck me as that same idea, but they were like, this time B.B. King.
Yeah.
Exactly. It has that bar blues band stank on it.
80s bar blues. Oh,
This is from UltimateClassicRock.com, so you know it's real.
yeah.
Loaded is only 8 songs long, 2 of which are covers. Another is a rearranged version of the hymn Precious Memories. Back to the Jesus shit. Plenty of studio hours and music talent had gone into this record, as the long list of credits in the liner notes could attest. Yeah, literally, he's limping along half-heartedly through an assortment of recording sessions before being shunted into limbo by execs at his longtime label Columbia Records, who seemingly lost faith in his ability to craft an album. They were literally like, have you ever thought about maybe taking a vacation for a year? Like, maybe go down to Barbados? No, we got this, okay, we'll be all right.
That album is so, like,
So
nobody's
bad.
at the helm.
Yeah.
That if it was anybody else, you'd be like, oh, they were all doing a lot of coke.
Yeah.
And you'd be done with the analysis. You'd be like, oh, too much coke, got it.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't think that's what happened. I think nobody's at the helm.
Yeah.
It's really... Yeah.
Like, every song is a different style. It's not an album.
So
it's just
rough.
like a bunch of random things. He destroys a Chris Christopherson song, like, my God, they killed him.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
the production is so, like, bad.
Also,
like,
the
We Are the World
these
vibe.
80s, like, people, you would expect me, and you would not be wrong, to not like Bob Dylan's singing style. I don't like it. But there's a way to record it kindly and a way not to. And by the 80s, it's like they want to emphasize the worst aspects of it. It makes him sound like a small child pretending to be a goat. It's so not able to be serious. Like, you can't listen to somebody be like, and then be like, oh, that's really powerful. You can't do it.
Like, imagine how many people are employed by Bob Dylan. Think of the hundreds of people that do tours to go around the country, and there's just one afternoon they're like, you ever listen to this fucking guy? My checks are coming from this?
I think a lot of it's that no one at the helm thing, where it's just like, Knocked Out Loaded more than anything sounds like they vaguely had some stuff to work with, and they were just like, throw some production on it.
Yeah.
And like, it's probably about like, whoever was working on it probably had no idea who he was. It was like, oh, it's some famous singer from the 60s. Okay, put his voice in there. Like, we'll put echo on it because it's the 80s.
So wrong.
It sounds like basically the both Empire Burlesque, especially Knocked Out and Loaded, they were like years of studio sessions, like just like revolving door, like get fucking Tom Petty's drummer in here, you know, like just revolving doors of musicians, you know.
And that's Tom Petty's a really good example. When you compare these records to the Tom Petty records at the same time, like Tom Petty, whatever, say whatever about him, I don't care. Couldn't care less. But like, he's having hits at this time, and his sound and his singing style are similar enough that there's a template there for what you could do correctly.
Oh yeah.
And you know, his production changes wildly from song to song, but there's, you know, they're using some of the same musicians, for fuck's sake.
Oh yeah.
And the difference is night and day. You know, nobody puts Tom Petty's voice in a pin spotlight.
Yeah,
because it would sound terrible. You know?
Yeah.
And he wants to be Dylan so bad. There's songs me and my dad that listen to Greatest Hits, and you want to go solo.
Yeah,
like,
right. It's very Dylan.
And of course, the legendary Saturday Night Live sketch of Bob Dylan and Tom Petty talking to each other.
Yeah.
Well, then there's also the Traveling Wilburys in the 80s, where they were in together, but it's like, that emphasizes that point so much more, because Tom Petty doesn't sound out of place in that band. Bob Dylan, like their big hit, everybody, everybody, you know, it's just like he doesn't. It's just like all of a sudden it's like a different song.
Yeah, they're like, can we get a little less of him?
The Traveling Wilburys is like such a satanic concept. It's so wrong in so many ways.
Roy Orbison wore a lot of black. I think he was involved with Satan.
Putting those voices, Roy Orbison, Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, like putting those people together in a room, those personalities together in a room, already should open a portal to another world. but then trying to record those voices together, like, so difficult. I don't understand the existence of the traveling.
Yeah, the producer was like, "Put on another pot of coffee, Margaret. It's gonna be a long night. We got some weird shit today."
You know, someone in those recording sessions tried to have Bob Dylan and Tom Petty harmonize.
Yeah, don't
and
do
his
that.
ears just start bleeding.
Yeah, that's so dumb. Never.
so
Yeah,
dumb.
none of those voices fit with, like, they don't blend. That's the thing. That's the reason we know who they
no
are.
doubt.
Is that they don't blend well. And there's nothing wrong with having a voice that doesn't blend well. I don't have a voice that blends well. I have a really high squeaky voice when I'm singing, not when I'm talking. Like, don't blend. Like, figure it out, you know? Like, you don't put a kazoo there. You put it somewhere else, you know?
Exactly.
It's not, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, definitely. And the album after that, Down in the Groove. My question is, what groove?
Yeah.
Why would you consider this a groove?
There's no groove. I mean, that one, I think there's a couple of good songs on it, but it's the most lost sounding of all of, because like at least the other ones, it's like he did some stuff in studio, people put their stamp on it. That one is just as little effort, and they didn't even bother to put the studio effects on.
Oh, it just doesn't care.
You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just a shitty production, bad gospel album.
It's really bad, and I think like, and also I've noticed that there has to be at least one song on these albums where it's like, this is me saying really bad pickup lines to a hot chick. And one was like, when did you leave heaven?
Is that the name of the song?
Yeah, when did you leave heaven?
Yep.
And it's literally what you would imagine. Oh, they must be missing you up there, and the choir and the harp.
Songwriting on autopilot, like,
Just could care less.
The same way it's a bad idea to like tell jokes about comedy, like the Aziz Ansari thing, where you're like, I went to a party and saw famous people. Like, no one gives a fuck. It's very hard to write a successful song that is just sort of like thinking about another song from 40 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, like When Did You Leave Heaven sounds like a very nice crooner song from the 40s.
It is that vibe. Yeah.
That's his his entire career is.
Yeah.
Being influenced by and sometimes straight up ripping off songs from 40 years beforehand.
Right. You know? That's his thing. And he's a hipster down to his toes, and that's his whole thing. And he's like, oh, you don't know my square shit that I'm hiding under my lapel. And it's like, yeah, we do. It's we've listened to records, dude.
Yeah.
And this has my least favorite Dylan song of all time, The Ugliest Girl in the World. He got Robert Hunter to co-write this.
I didn't know that was
co-written by Robert Hunter. And it's just like, the chick's ugly. She got a weird face.
But it's okay because I'm in love with her.
That sounds like a Merle Travis record.
It's so bad. Or like, you know, kind of like a D-list like blues guy, like this guy, big old butt.
It's like if you make 50 Cent blues CDs, like Blues 00ZE, it's required that you have one song about a woman who weighs 365 pounds, and you love her from every angle, every fucking day of the year.
You know who used to do a lot of these? He's probably my favorite blues discount bin. He's from Memphis. His name is Big Twist. And his hit album that we used to play in the summer so much is called Too Much Barbecue.
That's very funny. I love it. You reminded me.
What did you say?
I was just saying, the Down in the Groove thing. You reminded me of. There's an underground music album that came out in like the early 2000s. And, you know, underground music albums, you don't get to hear them before they're out because nobody cares. And usually rightly. And so this record comes out, and it's everybody sees the photo of it and sees the title way before they get to hear it. So it's a black record with this dude wearing like pimp pants, huge guitar, big like flashy guitar on it, and very blonde on blonde style photography of the guitar, and it's called Don't Forget to Boogie. So if you put that record out and you put that photo on it, what's the one thing you shouldn't forget to do? Boogie.
Oh, you're right. I never thought.
And then you play the record and it's like Eno ambience, and everybody's like, "Fuck this guy!"
Oh my god! I would throw I'd go to his house and throw tomatoes on his chord synthesis.
Yeah, so like everyone who wrote a review of that record was just like, "Forgot to fucking boogie, asshole." You know?
Exactly. He's like, I set myself up for failure by being so ironic.
So like, yeah, it's the same idea. Like, I don't care if you like. You have a goal, you want to go for your goal, and it's not my goal, fine. Just run your own race, you dumb shit. Like,
yeah, that's like the next level of hipster of like, isn't it funny that someone would want to make something good that people would like? Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, but anyways, we have 5 minutes left. He regains composure.
Oh, okay.
Or whatever. We'll go a little long.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, there's a couple good songs in that. Death Is Not the End, which is maybe only like because of the Nick Cave cover from like 20 years afterwards, or maybe only like 10 years afterwards. But and Silvio, the other one with Robert Hunter, I think is
that's all right.
And I was also speaking of similar things in that same tradition of like the old blues tradition of like my old lady weighs 1,000,000 pounds, like a Dead song from that same era in the 80s. I Need a Miracle. It's just, I've always thought it's like some of the stupidest lines where it's like, I need a woman who's twice my age, I need a woman who's twice my height, who's twice my weight. It's like all right, so you're looking
she's
for like
16 feet tall.
Yeah, do you think like
She has no body image issues whatsoever.
Exactly. Good for her. She's brave. Do you think Robert Hunter just like has like a journal, like a composition book that says weird looking broad lyrics? And he was like, goes to Bob Dylan. He's like, I brought these. Yeah, it's very
Dylan's like, oh, the good stuff.
Exactly. I'm gonna be in the bathroom for a few hours.
And then 89, we got Oh Mercy, which is
saves it.
That's the Danielle Lanois one. It's like
pretty good.
I feel like it's a similar vibe of like going with like I don't know, I'll throw it to a cool producer, but the producer was actually like, no,
not a piece of shit.
You like listen to like what he wanted to do. You know what I mean? And just kind of like got out of the way, and everything's nice and clean, and not like too fucking period based.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like
not
a cool,
too
like
80s,
swamp rock sound almost or something. You know what I mean?
That New Orleans.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think it was
sorry to everyone for saying.
Actually, I think
for
that's
saying
like what they were going for.
No, of course. That's Lanois. He was recording a Neville Brothers album. He came down and did Dylan right after that.
Did you two record in New Orleans? I hope so, but I doubt it.
Exactly. Imagine Bono eating a benet. Like, imagine him just like, I'd like this to go, please. Like, getting a to go mug from a place.
Okay.
I'd hate him.
1989, Dylan, Daniel Lanois. This is a question of how do you tell dog shit from diarrhea. But that said, I agree with you that at least having some class, getting the fuck out of the way is a better move. And I don't love clean production, but like, fine. That's, it's way better than the fucking Mutt Lange, whatever.
Oh my god.
Bullshit.
The soundtrack to An Officer and a Gentleman.
Yeah. Just take it easy. Jesus Christ. And it's funny to me how like every 15 years somebody's like, why don't we just record what the instruments sound like?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, whoa!
Exactly. You're the next Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
Sit on a couch and just do nothing and then be like, do like 3 more things. I'm going to be in the sauna.
I don't care about Rick Rubin.
Oh, we can talk. That's going to be the next hour.
I'm surprised Dylan hasn't done a record with Rick.
Yeah. That definitely should be. But Rick Rubin should get some credit for having homeless hair in front of everyone all the time.
Yeah.
Oh,
he
exactly.
Looks absolutely fucking nuts.
There's a guy outside of Ruggiero.
Yeah. They looks just like him.
And walking back and forth. I'm like, this is my Rick Rubin.
Yes, I know that guy, the pirate guy.
We gotta wrap this up. The dog shit to diarrhea thing, that was a concession. You were like,
really nice.
That's very mature. That's very mature, Angela. Thank you.
That was
You got her, dude.
The progression of Dylan through the 80s. Dog shit to diarrhea.
How can you tell them apart?
Yeah, like this is flowing. You know, this is such a flowing album.
Yeah, it's
Not like Diary.
It's flowing a little
It's
easier
all
by the end.
liquid.
Yeah. It's hard to get out at the beginning. It's flowing a little easier by the end.
All right.
Great.
Well, that's our show. We're going to figure out what we're doing. Do you have any ideas of what you want to do? I think a chorus pedal has to be involved. Do you have any chorus pedals?
Lindy does.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I got some ideas for an 80s Dylan jam.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That I could sing.
Oh, you guys have to talk about the Curtis Blow rap.
The Curtis Blow
yes.
rap. All right, yes. So that is way less embarrassing than I thought it was going to be.
It's basically just a Curtis Blow record. And they were like, do something weird at the beginning. Yeah, it's fine.
Oh yeah, and also probably the most famous thing he did in the 80s was "We Are the World" and his like awkward presence there.
Yes.
They're like,
Oh, dear.
just like, please don't, please God, just like don't focus on him too much. Like you can tell, like, we got a lot of other people. Like he's kind of having a Garfield on a Monday type of day. I think when they made that.
So funny.
Yeah.
I was so that's something that I like when I was a kid and MTV and cable television like came to our town.
Yeah.
My
hell
stepmother pulled me out of school for a week to watch it.
That's amazing.
That rules. This is a cultural moment for all of us.
I think every kid's dream is to be pulled out of school for a week to watch TV.
To watch TV late at night, yeah. And then she yelled at me a lot when I didn't agree with her. I was very weird kid. I was just as contrary then.
I want to learn.
I was just as contrary then as I am now. But yeah, I remember seeing that stuff like as it happened.
Wow.
And just being like, I have to say this, as a kid seeing that stuff, I had the exact reaction that like Gen Z would have if they saw it right now, which is like, who the fuck are all these old assholes? You know? They looked dumb as shit.
They're all in weird sweaters and shit.
They all
and
look
they're
like they
I'm
have
trying to look
never been in a
cool.
room with other human beings. Like
It's amazing.
they all
Imagine
look
how
like
many-
they were.
Probably most of them hadn't in 5 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. They all look like they have no idea how to go, like, be in a grocery store, and they take up space so weirdly.
Yeah.
And they're trying to squish them all together around a single microphone because they think it's going to look like the Everly Brothers, and it does not. It looks so wrong, and it's one of the most awkward things you'll ever see.
They're like, these are humans.
Yeah, they're not.
But like, think of how many, probably like 40-something people. Imagine the amount of handlers. There must be like 400
Oh yeah, they had
handlers
to
that
have
are
a
like,
whole like giant
they have to,
room
like-
right next to it to just
Yeah.
like have
oh yeah,
the-
they have like
the
all
trailers.
their like lists. Like, this is Stevie Wonder. He's wearing glasses. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like explaining like don't.
And at the time, it was like a news story that they had the sign "Check your ego at the door." That was a big deal.
Right on.
Everybody was
Right
like,
on,
"Oh
Mike."
wow, so impressive!" And yeah, it's everyone. It was a TV thing. It was total propaganda, and like everyone in real life was like, "That seems stupid." And now that it's so much time afterwards, everybody's like, "That was so cool."
I think it's as moving as the Queen Bohemian Rhapsody during the pandemic. Like seeing celebrities be
Yes.
like,
It was
believe in
the
yourself.
same. It was exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing.
I was gonna say about that. Also, I think in Live Aid, Bob Dylan's like sort of credited with being the reason Farm Aid exists because he did some like ramble during it about how like, oh, we're giving money to people, but we should be giving money to farmers. And
Oh yeah, he's literally like, I wish I could pay all those mortgages. I only have $50 million. He never brings up the second part of that sentence, the most money grubbing side of him. But anyways, we gotta wrap it up. Thank you both so
Thank
much
you.
for this.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you too, kid. This has been the
And-
best. I think we kind of saw eye to eye on things.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm never someone who's like, people are not allowed to disagree with
Exactly, I
me.
gotta do that.
Or we'll do the old boxing thing, though.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hey, you can save it for the ring. Save it for the ring. And I'm glad. I hope everyone enjoyed this. I hope you didn't, save your laughter for something better, because I think this was a very fun episode.
I think so.
Listen to this instead of Bob Dylan.
Please do.
You know what?
Yeah.
Listen to this and also Bob Dylan.
Ooh, controversial stand. Too radical for me.
live in a political world, as Bob Dylan says. That's a funny song because it's like you would think it's a political song, but it's not. It's just like, why is everything so political?
Exactly, man. That's what I'm saying. My centrist hero, Bob Dylan. Along with this audience, thank you so much, and have a lovely evening. Wave goodbye to the nice folks. Hey.